this is sort of just to set the playing field. You all know this. We spend a ton of money. We don't have the outcomes we all want. Really, the time in Chicago, Cam, got Marcus and me thinking about trust. We talked about trust a lot in Health Further last week. Unfortunately, our collective trust in institutions is fraying, maybe, and what's filling the void is not sufficient. Documentary, social media. Although Dr. Harrison is now a fierce healthcare top 50 something, it results in patients and families really being confused about what they should do, how to interact, which does not lead to better health. And so I was talking to Cam about, I really think physicians are a critical piece that could plug in and help us know what innovations are needed and then bring them to market more effectively. And so this hour is meant to sort of talk to you all about what I see out there, how Jumpstart thinks about innovation, and where, if you chose to invest your time, your experience, your capital, how we could make an impact on things. And so that was the extent of the preamble. Cameron, do you want to chime in anything? Does that fit with what you wanted to do? Or
Yeah, no, I think for me, I was, the reason I wanted to open this up and have a larger dialogue because I was really looking for a way to have an impact, to be part of a solution, and it not necessarily be part of my clinical practice, right? Or the business work that I do. That there's so much more that needs to be given attention, and that we have not only a skill set, but also a financial capability to help with. And that's why I was so excited about finding a new solution that I could be a part of. So many of us do it in different ways, right? We've started different nonprofits. We're working on diversity in the workforce. We're working on, Nzinga, you started, the Physicians for Criminal Justice Reform. We keep doing the same thing, finding different solutions for this same problem that Vic is describing. And so I was just happy to find one more way that I could hopefully become a part of a larger solution base, because it's not going to be any single effort that any of us does.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the next section is going to be me talking about the language and the terminology that Marcus and I will throw around. Like in medicine, it's English, right? But there's a whole bunch of terms that mean something to me. And I think if I spend 10 minutes sort of running through that, it's easy, but it's not easy if you don't know, if you haven't heard it before. And so I think it will be helpful to have a common language as we go forward on this. So that's the next section here. Okay, so Marcus and I call this innovation to impact. We're the two founders of Jumpstart. We founded it in 2015. And the idea was to kind of rethink, how do we go from a concept in an entrepreneur's head, how does that get out to market and become a useful product? And can we understand that process and then make improvements to it? Hold on, I think...
Hey, Steve.
Well,
he made it.
Hey, Steve, you missed the motivation for being here. So you don't know why you're here, but we all know why. It's to make a difference in healthcare. I think you'll pick it up as we go along pretty easily. Okay, so when we set out to do Jumpstart, this was what we were trying to improve upon. How do we go from that idea phase, two founders kind of sitting at Starbucks trying to make their thing come to life, to some kind of scale and make an impact for people? And so we really have studied this. These are the terminology points that I want to be able to refer to with you all and have you know kind of what I mean by MVP, product market fit model, et cetera. So the first one is the idea stage. every product around us, someone had to think of and invent and bring to market. We don't invest in this stage. Friends, family, and fools are kind of who I think. You got to find someone to help you get started who's not Jumpstart. And the reason is that over 90% never leave this stage. It's fun to think about your idea, but it's a lot of work to get it to that first let's test this out. And a lot of things just never make it off the ground. Someone raises $5,000, they get incorporated, but they don't really do that much. And so we let this stage sort of just be solved with all of the friends, family, and fools out there sort of helping their friends. The MVP is where we start to jump in. So MVP is an acronym. It's one of the terminology. I just want to tell y'all what it is. It's pretty straightforward. The minimal product that can be used to give value to the customer. And so the way that entrepreneurs build their products is important. If you try to build a way to help a customer get to an appointment, you could begin building a car, but it would take a lot of capital, a lot of time to do that. And instead, you could build a skateboard pretty quickly. Skateboard's not as useful as a car. If it's snowing out, not going to work. But that's the minimal viable product that you could imagine could help someone. And then if you have a skateboard and you have customers that are using that, you can then build on that to the next phase. So like in this example, it's like a scooter, then a bike, then a moped. And so we teach this kind of evolution of how you would have built a product. Let's try to think about the minimum effort, the minimum capital, the minimum feature set that would make a customer make their problem solved. We call that the MVP. This is where Jumpstart invests. So we typically invest in 2 founders, 3 founders, and they have the MVP, they have their thing, and they have a couple customers that have tried it. They're riding their skateboard to work. It's not a fully built out car, but you can see the value there. And more importantly to me, I can check references. I can talk to the customer and say, why did you use this thing? What was the point? And did it help? And you learn a lot more than if you try to build the full on end system, which might be perfect, but it's not going to really be that valuable until you get the whole thing done. This normally is a 25% success rate, meaning if you get the MVP, 1 out of 4 companies will proceed to the next level and sort of be working on their thing. So it's a significant, important step. And that's part of the reason we jump in here. It's the first place that you really can have pretty good results.
Hey, Vic,
yeah.
Do you just want to talk or you want us to jump in?
Oh, no, jump in, definitely.
So 25% succeed, which means 75% don't. So as we're looking how to identify those who are more likely to land in the 25%, what do you look for?
Yeah. So
and how do we level the playing field? Because I imagine there are some systemic disparities that push Black founders into the 75% disproportionately more so than not.
Yeah, it's certainly Black and brown founders struggle in lots of ways. But really, it's mostly how you design your MVP, and is it can you add on to it like the picture there, or are you stuck? Right. So if you create a tool that can't be extended, you can't do the next thing on it, then you may solve a very small niche market, but not be extendable. Or conversely, you talk someone into buying 2 wheels and a chassis, but it's not going to actually get them anywhere. But you're a good salesperson, and you think you have an MVP, but it's not really. You're not learning very much from it. And so you can err in either way. A lot of people have consulting practices that they think are MVP, but really they built a consulting. They solved the problem for one hospital system, and they said it was an MVP. They told Jumpstart was MVP. They think it's an MVP, but it's really they built a one-off custom solution like a consultant would. So those are two of the most common ways that you can have a mistake here. And this is what we teach. So we have a support tool. It's like an online university called Jumpstart Insight, where we support the entrepreneurs and we help them understand this and then, hopefully course correct. Does that help?
Vic, can I piggyback on that as well?
Yeah.
I think the scientists and a lot of us are going to look at this and think most likely these are not, if they're more therapeutic options, right? We haven't gone through clinical trials yet. We probably have some limited data and, if anything, kind of anecdotal when we're at this stage, right? Like, I mean, that's somewhat the entire point. So you're talking to customers, but it would be hard to then extrapolate that out. Is there something, though, that you look for? Is there some sort of assessment that you do that makes you a little bit more comfortable that, hey, this could not go to scale, because that's more an operational question, but it could actually prove a larger benefit, or maybe not benefit, it could hit a larger customer base more than anything, even beyond the anecdote? Like, how do you get that comfort of extrapolating it out?
Yeah, so I don't do life sciences. So a therapeutic, like a new molecule or a new treatment that has biochemistry risk, we wouldn't do. We do diagnostic devices, and that is about 1/5 of what we do. But the most common thing is a tech-enabled service or digital health or some tool that would get better care, maybe better following care protocols. One thing I'm doing right now is sort of helping health systems engage with the nurse population to get them to show up on time and pick up an extra shift, and sort of almost a workforce. It's not really patient-facing. It's more like making sure the staff is engaged. And so it depends on the use case. But one of the reasons we don't do deeper life sciences is it's very hard to pull out an MVP because you can't really put it in a human. You may have animal trials, but it's not exactly the same.
Gotcha. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you to think of it that way.
Yeah. So then we have this thing, PM fit, which stands for product market fit. Product market fit is when this product that you're selling, the customers really want it, and it fits with what a need that they have that is top of mind, kind of a pain point or a challenge. And once they see the solution, they immediately want to buy it and implement it. The price point is right. The way that it is sold and integrated into their system, into their workflows, fits. And so that is more of a, like the MVP is functional. The product market fit means it's like presented to the customer, and the feature set is in a way that it is, people are really excited to see it. It's like a magical thing that they are excited and they want it. So you can see Mark Andreessen is a famous VC. He runs Andreessen Horowitz, and it's a feeling thing. There's no hard line, but when customers start calling you and saying, "Hey, I saw this friend of mine at another health system is using this, and I want it," that's a sign that you're starting in the right direction. When you're having to kind of call everyone and talk them into it, you're probably not there yet. So maybe the feature's not quite right, or even the way you're installing it may be too hard. A lot of things in healthcare, the integration into the workflow, it has to fit in to the way that you treat patients. That can be almost more important than what the actual product does. You need both to be right. And so this is where our later stage funds invest. So after you have sort of achieved that first MVP and you're starting to get traction, but you really haven't got product market fit yet, Marcus and I, our later stage funds will come in and help them get there. And other VCs also invest in this stage. And so this is a much better success rate. If you can get here, you're not quite 50-50, but you're in a really good position to do well. It's small. And so the next phase is the model. So, okay, now we have the customer is happy. We know what the product is, but there's a whole bunch of stuff behind the scenes around how do you bill customers and collect money? How do you support customers for their questions? Is there like another product roadmap you have to do? All of that stuff about now you're building a company, not just the product. And so that's how I think about stage 4 versus stage 3. It's the product is in stage 3. Once that's working and really flowing well, it's wonderful. Then you have to turn to, okay, how are we going to build a business? And this model we teach that it should be pretty like a unit economics thing. I want it to be understanding how on a very small scale, how does this all fit together? Let's not worry about being a unicorn, treating every patient in the world. I want to just have it be functional, and let's make sure we can make money and keep doing this indefinitely because we want to make sure we're kind of resilient and we don't have to worry about capital markets. We can grow and raise money if we want, but our business is viable. We're making enough money to pay our people, and we can keep doing this. That's optimizing the model. This is where most VCs are. They come in here like either as you are building out the model or more likely like as it's starting to come together and you want money to grow. And that's because it's very likely to work. I mean, you are working out some of the kinks maybe, but this is much less risky when you get to this phase of the process. And then scale. So scaling is growing up the business so that you meet your impact goals and your income goals, and everyone is satisfied that we're really making the impact that we want to make. And things don't scale linearly usually. So this is the golden ratio thing. You see that in a lot of nature, a lot in human medicine. So a lot of times the scaling process, we need to figure out, like as we grow customers, often it's not a linear model. You don't need the same number of support people, but you do need more support people. So this is where growth investors and private equity really play. And they're always successful, but the 20% is where they scale to whatever size they want, and everything flows kind of perfectly. So that's the process that Jumpstart tries to kind of optimize. You can see where we play here overlaid on the whole system. That purple bunny is our teaching tool that is trying to help cross that chasm there from MVP to product market fit. So this process is not in a vacuum, right? It's all the different parts of the healthcare system need to be incorporated with it. And where physicians can help, I think, is in that. So we need to have empathy and understand what's going on in the community. What ideas should we work on? Or we need investment capital. We want you to contribute and help take this product that is not quite right for the workflow situation, or maybe it's not right for the patient and not right for the doc. How can we change it so it fits better? So we're physicians can help anywhere along this to help with the process. We have aligned interests. We want the entrepreneurs to have success. We're invested in it. And then also, the more they have success, the more patients and caregivers are assisted. So that's kind of how I think about the whole process. And so I wanted to take a minute and just talk through. I mean, I hit you with several terms all at once. I think they're fairly straightforward, but I do them all the time. So there may be questions, or we can talk through. And then the next section is just a couple slides on how we actually package this for people.
It helped. Vic, I hadn't seen that. That helped me tremendously because I kept getting confused pre-seed and seed. So that's incredibly
exactly.
helpful.
So it's and just I throw terms around. I mean, docs throw terms around. You live these terms every day, but even though they're English terms, if you don't use them all the time, they're just foreign, right? So
Yeah.
And so, Vic, how you all invest at the seed stage, and then how do you continue to support a company? Because usually, as you go from to product market fit, that's another fundraise. To scale, that's another fundraise. And so, how does Jumpstart Foundry stay in support of a company over those parts of the lifespan?
Yeah, so we have this online tool. I'll talk about it in the next section, but it's like a online university that we license their software for, and then we've gotten professors from various universities in business schools to teach marketing, finance, operations, et cetera, HR, but customized for the startup world.
Mhm.
So they have online classes. I'm teaching a class right now. It's 8 weeks on how to prepare to raise your next round of capital. And so we have, 8 weeks, and they go through different phases. Where now this week on Wednesday, I'll be talking about sort of trying to work with investors to help them grow your business. I call it influence your business before you ask them for money. So like pull them in, get them excited about what you're doing. Do not ask them for money, and ask them for help, advice, counseling. That will then grow your opportunity. You'll meet more people, you'll get better. And then later, we'll ask them for money. And now they're more bought in. They're more passionate about it, especially if you listen to their advice. It works much better. So we have classes like that. And then we have a mentoring system. We actually pay this mentoring group. For a long time, we used volunteer mentors. And we have lots of people that want to volunteer, which is great. But I've found that I can hold this company accountable to mentor companies because we pay them. And so we use both volunteers and paid mentors. But some of the companies that need the most help, maybe they have challenging communication skills, or they aren't the best founder, and they need the most help. So we have a mentoring process. Then we have a vendor system where lots of companies want to sell to startups, and they need a lot of things. They need to be on the Amazon cloud, or they need to hire an analytics package, or they need to buy stuff. And so it takes hours and hours of time for them to sort through who should I buy from? Mm-hmm. And so we decided early on that we're going to curate this list. And yes, we can get some discounts sometimes, but I want the top quality vendor, and I want to be able to tell a founder, this is the right group to use for your marketing needs. And we'll save you time, and we'll get you to the front of their waiting list. You don't have to wait for them. They might give you a discount, but really we're saving you time and effort in getting to the right person quickly, because that's the real key.
That's great.
Got it.
Let me show
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
I just want to make sure, Thais, Steve, Stan, Nate, I know you're all kind of in different places and everything, but please feel free to jump in with any questions.
Okay, so this is our, we've been doing this since 2015. We raise a fund. We started doing it every year. This year, we've moved it to twice a year. And so we've done 9 funds. I'm really proud that we've created over $1 billion in value, some for ourselves, but also for the founders, for these founders of 189 businesses, created $1 billion in healthcare value. That is across 190 companies. We invest in about 40 to 45 a year. And, some of them fail. We've had 29 that have failed. We've had 11 exits that the exit is the more fun reason for them to leave the portfolio. We invested $28 million, and that 28 is now worth 47. What we offer from an investor point of view is immediate diversification. So this is a risky space, right? There's you saw the risk profiles where companies fall off. I think it's really valuable to be able to take a pretty small amount of money. $15,000 is our minimum. And so it's very approachable. And then we will put that across 20, 30 companies, and we manage it all for you. So it's easy to do. There are no management fees. So all the money gets put into these companies. And then we give updates every 6 months. We're like, this is what's going on. And so where we really get involved at Foundry is in this MVP stage. We think about it in two ways, really kind of selecting the best potential companies. So we go through about a little over 1,000 startups a year. We reach out to outbound and try to find them where they are. Maybe they're in a university commercialization area, or they're in an accelerator, or they're in a co-working facility. We're outbound, kind of reaching out to them. We ask them to fill out a bunch of information, kind of like an application to be part of our fund here. And so they fill out a form, and it asks them a bunch of questions about what they're doing. And then we use that. We have an algorithm that sort of sorts through that and kind of profiles them on some basic things. Like, we have found that 2 founders working together has a much better success rate than 1 working alone. And so kind of simple things like that. And then slightly more complex, like, has someone who's not a blood relative paid money for this thing? And these, we can really get that just by selecting on that base. And then we give feedback to the ones we say no to based on that algorithmic score, right? So if you get negative points for only having 1 founder, the email says, we love what you're doing. We think you should try to find someone to partner with you, have complementary skills, and then reapply. And so most of our successful applicants will have applied 2, 3, 4 times because they learn through the process. And then we have humans go through due diligence on that. We get to the top 25%. And then I've sucked Cam into being on a selection committee. We have a selection committee of investors that goes from that top 20% to the top 10. So part of the way we get better results is we select, really high potential startups across the country that are doing what we think are really important parts of healthcare. And then we already talked about this, but this is the slide for Insight. So Insight is our tool to help the companies make progress. We want to mitigate risk. We want to teach them things. We want to introduce them to mentors and give them assistance. And then we also group them together. So when I'm going to a health system or a payer, I can pull all my behavioral health tools and say to Cam, CityBlock's interested in behavioral health tools. Here, look at this list of 8. And that is really helpful for our corporate partners. It saves them time over having to talk to 30 little startups. They can get sort of a one meeting where they see a bunch. But also it filters down to helping the startups, because we can say to them, we're showing you, we're giving you opportunities in the marketplace for customers. And then we also help them with staffing, because a lot of times they need to grow as they get bigger, they need to grow their team. And so we've already talked about the MVP process. We really think that these 2 aspects just give us a huge advantage compared to the status quo, right? So we set out to increase our success rate to 50% success, which is not what's out there. It's about 25%. And so the magic is that we get the financial expectations that every investor would want. You need to be paid, a great financial return, because this is a really risky part of the cycle. Except then we are changing the process, and we don't have such risks. So a lot of our companies make it through, and then that results in better financial outcomes and more companies to market. We've had several exits. I put this slide up not really to show but to point you to the enterprise value. So we are looking to sell things for $50 to $100 million in exit. So these are not unicorns. They're not taking a company public. We're trying to build really, really impactful products that can make a difference. And then they get bought by either private equity or large Fortune 500 companies. And these are not really affected by the debt markets or other things. I mean, J&J had a lot of money on the balance sheet. It did not hit their financial, like it wasn't material for their financial statements to pay us $97 million. Of course, it was very material for us and for the entrepreneur. So that's the kind of thing we're doing, is this early stage, like build a product, make it work, and then sell it to someone who really has a big distribution and marketing weight, and they can get it to the most people possible.
And hey, Vic, what's usually your average time horizon from your investment to exit?
Yeah, so it's about 4 years, but there's a pretty wide standard deviation. So it can last. I mean, we have some companies that we did in 2016 that are still with us and building value. I'm chairman of a company that is great. It's $50 million in revenue and really valuable, but it's a woman CEO. She wants to keep building value. She doesn't think it's time to sell yet, and so God bless her. Right? I mean, but I think it takes at least 3 years. Our record is about 22 months was our fastest ever, but in general, it's 3 years or more, probably on average 4 years. And then this is the sort of the summary page. We are raising a fund for the second half of 23, and we're now moving to this. We used to have a fund every year, but we are closed to new investors for 6 months, and we just didn't take any money. And I liked that because I was lazy, but I brought in a guy named Doug Edwards to lead the whole place. And he said, that's ridiculous. We should just let's just keep every 6 months, instead of turning it off, let's do another fund. And so now we have it, it's always sort of open to whoever wants to be in.
I'm sorry, say that part again, Vic. I was listening for that part and then I got distracted. The fund is always open?
Yeah, so it's, the fund is open for 6 months. So right now I'm in the window where the second half of 23 fund is open. And we will make the investments in October. And then we will stop that and we'll begin gearing up for the first half of 2024. And so it's always open in the sense that you can always jump into whatever fund is going on then. I think, Cameron, you came in right under the wire in the first 6 months. It was like June 15th or something in there. And then the other thing that a lot of our investors do is say, well, I want to allocate funds over a couple years, because it's, that like I build these companies continuously, but the exit markets are different, right? So you can sell a company today for not a very high exit value, but you can sell a company for $30-40 million. In the crazy time running up to COVID, and even in COVID, some of the digital health companies were huge multiples. Johnson & Johnson paid 52 times revenue for that company because they just had to have it, and it was in a like a crazy time in the public markets.
I mean, that's irresponsible.
Well, it just depends on your perspective. Like, they looked at it as, well, yeah, there's $1.5 million in revenue, but we're going to put it through our distribution channels, and we can harvest some $100 million in revenue just by turning it on through our channels. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not a shareholder, but selling to them, it wasn't irresponsible. But as a buyer,
it was actually very responsible.
Exactly.
There's several chats. Hold on, let's see if there's questions.
Oh, it's all me. It's just like me in your peanut gallery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are all the slides I had. The way I think about this is a very small percent of your net worth and a small percent of your time, I'd like to argue you could impact how innovation gets to market to benefit the healthcare system that we all know needs help. And then a small percent of your net worth could really impact your personal financial situation. And at different times in your career, you might have more of one than the other, right? So some people might have no time, but they have a little capital. Other people might have not much capital, their family and debt and things, but they have some time. I want all of it. I mean, any advice from physicians, and then we need capital to sort of help these companies buy stuff.
Yeah. I'm just excited to be a part of both, everybody. I mean, to me, it's also the learning process. Vic, I learn every time we have a conversation. I sat through, I forget what we called it, but looked at the 40 companies.
Yeah. First look. So first look is the
first look, yeah.
Like show off the portfolio to the public for the first time.
Yeah. So I got to see them, and I mean, there's some really impressive ones, and I'm really excited to be a part of the selection committee this fall. So I'm just learning about innovation. I'm learning, just how VC works at a much more hands-on, and hopefully somewhat profitable capability in the long run. But for me, it's also really the fact that we need to spark more innovation in healthcare, and this is a focused and incredibly, I think, well situated opportunity to do so. I mean, I have to admit, Vic, I probably, even though I'm close to Marcus, I probably wouldn't also kind of trust this concept as well if I didn't listen to you guys every week on your podcast as well, too.
So a little plug for that. Maybe everyone here already knows about it, but we just talk about what's going on in healthcare and innovation and capital markets and regulation. I learned from talking to Marcus about it, and we decided to record it, and it's been incredible. I mean, I didn't know you, Cam, before. Marcus knew you, but the process of reviewing all of the news going on and then having to get my act together to be able to talk intelligently to Marcus about it, he's smarter than I am, that forces me to learn about it all. And then we get a lot of feedback from the listeners and like, oh gosh, well, we should add this in. And it's really, I mean, there's a lot going on in healthcare, as y'all know. And unfortunately, everything is kind of canned on TV or in the newspaper and social media. It's too bite-sized. A lot of things in healthcare, there's more nuance. I can't tell you in a 10-second soundbite all the details of it.
Exactly. So I'm learning from there. I'm learning, with this process, and we'll continue to learn. But I also, I have to say, it's also, my investment in you and in Marcus is also a reflection of, I believe in you guys. Like, I think you guys are doing this for the right reasons. I think there's, you guys are doing this, with integrity and values. I can't necessarily say that that's the case in every respect, but I believe in what you guys have built. So, as much as, and Zing, I know we talk about, I even said it on my podcast with Marcus last week, right, Vic, that I was kind of questioning, at least levels of profitability. I don't have a problem with there being a profit, right? I clearly am hoping for some with this, right?
Yeah.
But I think, I think it's all balanced here. I think we need for there to be this sort of investment in order to really promote innovation.
I think about it. There's really two things that I think are incredibly important, and we couldn't do it without these things, which is aligning interests so that my investors and the people that work here, me, Marcus, but there's 14 of us, the whole team, and the companies, the founders and the people they hire, all of those interests need to be exactly aligned. We're like, we all only win if we get this product out to market. It helps users, whether that's patients or doctors or facilities, and we lose if we don't. And then I hire really ethical, great people, but I also pay them aligned with exactly what we all want. And that breeds great culture and great work because everything's aligned up. And then the last thing I'll say is just transparency, right? So like, I'll answer anything that y'all want to know and we'll talk through it. I had an investor on Friday wanting to check a reference with a company that had failed. And so, okay, those founders don't love to rehash the discussion, but we found them and he's got a reference, and that's just part of it. I mean, we're going to have founders that don't have success, and how we treat them through that process, how we support them, then hopefully they come back and have a better idea and, do it right the next time. That learning process is really important. You can only do that being transparent, I think.
Yeah.
And then part of this too, Cam, is like there might be people on the line that they're learning and the process they take is going to take a few months, and they want to watch this or listen to the podcast or talk to their friends. And so that it's we're going to be here for a long time. There's plenty to do in healthcare. So if you're not in this time, there'll be every 6 months, it's a new one. I'd love to have you all now, but also it takes people sometimes a minute to sort of get to do research and think about it. And that's perfectly fine. That's what I expect.
Yeah.
Hey, Vic, remind me how many funds you've had already and what the return on those funds has been.
We've had 9 funds so far. The return varies by which one, but across all of them, it's a 28% like net of fee. So we do have fees. Our fee is on the back end. When we send money back to the investors, we take 10% of that. And so it is net of fees. There's no management fees, but and so it's 28% net of all the fees. Now, the most recent ones don't have that. It's that's average across all of them.
Sure.
And like I said, it's a $15,000 minimum. I would recommend people think about this across a few funds. So you might do 15, 20K now, and then plan for doing a similar amount next spring and next fall. But there's no requirement for that. If something else popped up or you decide to leave your practice and buy into somewhere else, and for that minute, cash is tight, there's no requirement. It's not the best planning process. It's better to, instead of investing 50K at once, I'd rather you break it up and do over a couple, just because you get more shots on goal, kind of more opportunities that way.
And then I saw in your slide, access to the selection committee requires an investment of 200K. That's aggregate cumulative, or that's in one fund?
That's in one fund, and we're recording this, but there are
sorry.
Don't
say anything that doesn't need to be memorialized.
well, what I was going to say is that there are times when someone brings experience or expertise or perspective that really is going to help the selection process. And in that case, we waive the minimum because we want your brain, we want your experience at the table. There are other folks that are, like I have one of our investors is trying to build up his own track record to launch his own venture fund. And he wanted to be at the table, not because he's going to particularly add much, but he wanted to see how the process works and kind of learn. And so you can kind of buy a seat for 200K. But I want doctors' perspective on things. And so for doctors, it's a different profile.
I think you said that perfectly for a review.
I'm working on my political answer.
Very good.
Yeah.
Nate, Stan, Steve, Thais, are you guys questions, thoughts? You can definitely talk to me offline. But Vic is, as you've heard, very transparent and open. So please definitely jump in for questions.
I don't have any questions right now. I think it has been a very interesting presentation. I'm liking what I'm hearing.
Okay, great. Well, what I'll do is I will send the slides out around so you can have them and then we'll sort of put together the video. Typically, the marketing team will sort of clean it up a little bit, so we take out maybe some dead space, or I might have not started it right time. So that'll be a couple of days before we get it out. But also, I think you probably have my email address. Feel free to reach out to me. Cameron certainly can find me. And I'd love to follow up and just, get to know you better. Whether you invest now or not, doesn't really matter. We're all in this to make health better, and there's plenty to do.
Thais, I saw you come off mute. Did you have a question?
I was just gonna, I could also ask offline, but I was just gonna ask I may have missed it. How long have you two been working with Vic, or are you new to Vic too?
I just met Vic this summer, right, Vic?
Yeah.
I mean, this has been a couple of months of learning.
Yeah, the post-COVID world, we have not met in person.
Yeah.
Got it.
I have worked with Marcus. I started working with Marcus in 2008, and then we quit our day jobs and jumped into Jumpstart, told our wives we were doing this thing in 2015. Yeah. And so I think some of y'all know Marcus from the Aspen Fellows group.
Yep. Thais. So Marcus, Vic's partner, is in me and Nzinga's and Stan's class for the Aspen Health Innovators Fellowship. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And Mark, just for people know, Marcus I think he would say is an entrepreneur. He did 3 other startups before Jumpstart. I did a startup in the 90s, which we sold in the .com craziness. And then I traded teams to be a VC in 2000. So I've been a venture capitalist for a long time. I'm only 23 years old now. I have 23 years experience.
Yeah, right. I love it.
Okay,
well, Vic, thank you for your time.
Calling in late on a Monday, and I really appreciate you taking time to learn about it, and let me know if I can answer any questions or help.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for joining, guys.